Taxi Driver tells the story of a lonely man named Travis Bickle, played by Robert De Niro. He's one of many faceless people existing by themselves that big American cities are filled with. Solitary men, living solitary lives, without family or friends or loved ones. His only form of self-expression is a handwritten diary he endlessly pores over, which nobody will ever read. At the film's beginning, you could almost classify Travis as a disaffected innocent, but part of the pull of the picture is watching him slowly lose that innocence. And what becomes both scary and thrilling is watching what replaces that lost innocence. Writer Paul Schrader and director Martin Scorsese's sympathetic portrait of this malcontent chronicles his day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month existence. And as the film pulls us along through Travis's routine, we see how bloody easy it is for him to drift into violent fantasies, perceived injustices, and a thirst for action that only a bloodletting will quench. We see how easy it is for Travis, all by his lonesome, to become at first a crackpot, then a nutjob, then finally a sociopathic time bomb. One of the great anxieties of Taxi Driver is that it's shot from Travis Bickle's perspective. And that perspective is of a man who's a racist, not a loudmouth racist like Peter Boyle's character Joe.
Them niggas are getting all the money. Why work? You tell me, why the fuck work when you can screw, have babies, and get paid for it? Welfare.
Travis never says anything overtly racist about the black residents of New York he shares the streets with. He never calls them the N-word. Characters in Mean Streets use that slur, as does Scorsese himself, playing Travis's cuckolded backseat passenger who muses about what a .44 Magnum can do to his wife's pussy. Peter Boyle's wizard refers to black folks as mau-maus, but the only time Travis refers to black folks, it's as spooks. And he makes a case for his fairness as a taxi driver, saying,
"Some won't even take spooks. Don't make no difference to me."
Yet the film makes it obvious he sees black males as figures of malevolent criminality. He's repelled by any contact with them. They are to be feared, or at the very least avoided. And since we watch the film from Travis's point of view, we do as well. That amazing low-angle dolly shot of the black pimp in the all-night cafeteria, tapping the table with his finger. Part of the anxiety the viewer feels while watching the movie comes from the question the movie forces you to ask yourself. Is this movie a movie about a racist, or is it a racist movie? The answer is clearly the former. And what makes the film a gutsy masterpiece is it dares to pose that question to the audience and then allows them to devise their own answer. In the years since he wrote the screenplay, Paul Schrader has articulated that Travis's racism stems from the fact that the frustrated and powerless poor tend to take out their resentment not on the powerful class above them, but the even more powerless class below them.
All you gotta do is act black and the money rolls in.
Yet as rough as Scorsese's picture is, it's still a watered-down version of Schrader's original nihilistic text. Because in Schrader's original script, all the characters at the end that Travis kills were black. Harvey Keitel's pimp sport was black, as was the guy who managed the fuck hotel that Murray Mostyn played in Scorsese's film. According to Schrader, he was asked by the producers and Columbia Pictures to change the character of Sport from black to white, because the race riots of a few years earlier still cast a long shadow. And there was a fear if any violence broke out in a cinema, it would cause the film to be yanked from theaters for public safety. As happened, Schrader pointed out, a few years later to Walter Hill's The Warriors.
Well, John, violence by street gangs has inspired a new movie, and the movie called The Warriors may be inspiring even more violence.
Okay, is it possible Columbia could be timid about a provocative film like Taxi Driver?
Oh, hell yeah!
Over 30 years later, Columbia Pictures was timid as hell about the reaction to Django Unchained.
Shut up, Black. You ain't got nothing to say I want to hear.
But Columbia Pictures was worried about what exactly? Violence breaking out among black patrons? Why? Because the film provoked violence? Or that black ticket buyers would be so incensed that the film's pimp character was portrayed by a black actor that they would riot in the cinema in outrage? If that was the case, how come there weren't riots across the country during screenings of Death Wish? In that film, Charles Bronson pretended to shoot more black actors than white. The Warriors analogy doesn't really work either. It wasn't that film's on-screen mayhem or Michael Beck that caused violent incidents to break out in a few of the houses screening that picture. It was because, since it was a gang picture, gang members showed up at some engagements during opening weekend.
Can you dig it?
Taxi Driver might have provoked a couple of angry think pieces in a few newspapers. But actual violence? Considering during the 70s there was no shortage of black male criminality on display on movie theater screens or TV picture tubes, the studio and the producer's fear of outraged, violent black males not only seems far-fetched, it smacks of Travis Bickle's warped reasoning. So let's get this straight. Columbia Pictures had no problem whatsoever with all those villainous Caribbean brothers plotting, scheming, and murdering in the deep. But Taxi Driver was a bridge too far?
If his tongue moves again, cut it.
Any way you slice it, Scorsese and producers Michael and Julia Phillips and Columbia Pictures changing the pimp character of Sport from black to white was a societal compromise. And frankly, the only reason it can survive a compromise of that magnitude is the magnetic performance of Harvey Keitel as Sport. I mean, seriously, Taxi Driver without Harvey Keitel, what would that even be? You associate Keitel so much with the movie without him seems as unthinkable as the movie without Robert De Niro. Yet when the Phillipses first set Taxi Driver up at Columbia Pictures, it wasn't Robert De Niro who was earmarked for the role of Travis Bickle.
Fuck face! Come on, motherfucker! My big shot!
But Jeff Bridges, coming off of an Academy Award nomination for Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Oh, you sexy bitch.
And an acclaimed performance in the critical sleeper hearts of the West.
Faster than you.
Now, to be fair, seemingly Scorsese never considered the change of sport's race from black to white as big a deal as I do. I'm pretty sure where Mr. Scorsese was coming from. If there was a chance of riots leading to the film being pulled from cinema screens, that wasn't a chance worth taking. Besides, Marty had wanted the film to have a part for Harvey Keitel, and he was frustrated that it didn't. He originally offered Harvey the part of Sybil Shepherd's flirtatious co-worker, but the actor turned it down.
Well, I don't think I could do it.
So, if by making the pimp character white, that opened up a good role for Harvey Keitel, great. Problem solved. But Keitel forced the fraudulent aspect of the conceit because he wanted to meet a real-life counterpart. Yes, Harvey Keitel wanted to meet a real-life white New York pimp, not realizing that the Great White Pimp was a mythological cinematic creation. Nevertheless, Schrader was tasked with hitting the streets of New York looking for a white pimp for Harvey to base his character on. Needless to say, since there weren't any white pimps in New York, Schrader never found one. He said, every once in a while somebody might say, yeah, I think I heard about one who hangs out about 6 blocks away, but I ain't never seen him. If there was a white pimp out there, Schrader said, he never found him. So Keitel was forced to do all of his character research with a black gentleman of leisure.
Step to the music, yeah. Step to the music. Stop.
And that one of them damn pimps. Sure in the hell is.
So granting the idea of Taxi Driver without either Robert De Niro or Harvey Keitel is unthinkable, let's think the unthinkable. Let's imagine that famous scene in Taxi Driver, where Travis and Sport meet each other for the first time, and the taxi driver approaches the pimp about Iris.
Fuck her in the ass, come on her face, man. She get your cock so hard, she'll make it explode.
Let's imagine the same scene, but with Jeff Bridges playing a less urban, more hayseed version of Travis, and Max the Mack Julian playing a black, silky smooth Sport.
Fuck her in the ass, come on her face, man. She get your cock so hard, she'll make it explode.
None of it makes sense, man. None of it.
No doubt when Schrader first imagined Sport in his mind's eye, it was an actor like Max Julian he imagined portraying him. Julian is so perfect, Schrader could have written Sport with him in mind. Does the subtextual racism of Taxi Driver now become text? Or does it just make the whole tableau more convincingly authentic? And who couldn't handle that? Black audiences? Or is it more likely that the white folks financing the movie were the ones made to feel uncomfortable by the imagery in Schrader's original script?
I just feel uncomfortable.
Well, don't.
So uncomfortable that a fear of black males causing violence in cinemas was conveniently trotted out as an excuse to change Schrader's Sport from black to white? With all their anxiety, it begs the question, why did Columbia Pictures want to do Schrader's script for Taxi Driver in the first place? Well, one of the big reasons was because Schrader was one of the reddest hot screenwriters in town, due to the gobsmacking price he elicited from Warner Brothers for his script, The Yakuza.
The winner is The Sting.
Also, it didn't hurt that the 3 producers of the smash hit The Sting, Michael and Julia Phillips, and superstar producer, Tony Bill, brought the material to Columbia. But what really encouraged Columbia Pictures to greenlight Schrader's screenplay, originally with Robert Mulligan at the helm, had nothing to do with its literary allusions to Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground or its similarity to Arthur Bremer's Diary, but its cracked mirror reflection of the Michael Winner-directed, Charles Bronson-starring, smash-hit vigilante action drama Death Wish, as well as other revenge-based dramas very popular at the time. With seminal classics like Taxi Driver, it's easy to just think of a world where they always existed and were always destined to exist. But that's not how a hot potato screenplay like Taxi Driver gets produced by a major Hollywood studio. The truth is, if you revere Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, like I do, then you have Michael Winner's Death Wish to thank for its existence. The Charles Bronson New York vigilante drama Death Wish opened in July 1974. The narrator of its trailer bombastically proclaimed,
"This is the story of a man who decided to clean up the most violent town in the world."
By 1975, 1 year after Death Wish and 1 year before Taxi Driver, violent revenge dramas would begin to flood the cinemas of the world. William Margold, first-string film critic for the sex rag The Hollywood Press, dubbed the genre, amusingly, Revengeamatics.
What do you want? Don't jive, Mother. You know what we want.
Like Bronson would go after New York muggers over the death of his wife and rape of his daughter in Death Wish, George Kennedy would go after European Baader-Meinhof-inspired terrorists over the death of his family in The Human Factor.
Want me to turn these animals over to the police so that they can be put in jail? Not on your life. The Human Factor, where the deadliest weapon alive is you.
CIA assassin James Caan would seek revenge against his former partner, best friend Robert Duvall in Sam Peckinpah's The Killer Elite. Not a great Peckinpah movie, but with the last great slow-motion Peckinpah action sequences. Alain Delon's Top of the Heap hitman would kill all the mafia dons responsible for blowing up his wife and child in a car bomb meant for him, in No Way Out, which I saw at the Old Town Mall with my mother, on a double feature with the Peter Fonda and Telly Savalas violent South African diamond heist flick, Killer Force. Jan Michael Vincent's Carol Joe Hummer would dump sexy bad guy L.Q. Jones in a garbage dumpster and drive his truck, the Blue Mule, through that big glass sign in White Line Fever. Phil Carlson's seminal action classic of 1973, Walking Tall, would get 2 sequels in 1975. The official one from Bing Crosby Productions, the awkwardly titled Part 2 Walking Tall.
He's got that club with him. He's still got it.
Which included a new actor playing real-life sheriff and real-life fascist Buford Pusser, the very good Bo Svensson, who would make the role his own.
Thank you.
Replacing departing star Joe Don Baker. Nowadays, Part 2 Walking Tall doesn't play so bad, but back in its day, its mild PG-rated pulse, when compared to the original film's hard R impact, pleased few.
Oh, Buford.
Put your hands on top of the car.
Then, original Buford Pusser, Joe Don Baker, and original Walking Tall maestro, Phil Carlson, reunited for a Paramount-backed follow-up, The Damn Good and Damn Brutal Framed, which would prove to be Carlson's last film and one of the best last films made by one of Andrew Sarris's expressive esoterica genre cool kids.
Your full name? Ronald S. Lewis. S for stinks. First time I ever saw a tub of shit in a suit.
Carlson's 2 closest colleagues in the 70s still plugging away shooting movies, Robert Aldrich and Don Siegel, wish they exited the stage with a movie as strong as Frame.
Excuse my impertinence, but that's pure crap.
When Taxi Driver was first released, the film had a higher art pedigree than any of the above movies. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. It eventually received 4 Academy Award nominations and great reviews from the best critics. Yet Columbia Pictures revealed its real reason for making the picture 1 year later in 1977. That was when Columbia re-released Taxi Driver as the lower half of a double feature top-lined by a Revengematic independent pickup titled The Farmer. Tagline, "The farmer doesn't get mad, he gets even." Columbia Pictures' ad campaign insinuated that the farmer and the taxi driver story in Quest were the same. 2 stories about 2 heroes who have been pushed too far and decide to do something about it. This is how I first saw Taxi Driver. On the lower half of a double feature with the farmer at my favorite grindhouse, the Carson Twin Cinema. While I was fascinated by the TV spot for Taxi Driver that played over and over the year it initially was released, I still needed an adult to take me to see the R-rated film. And that year, that didn't happen. But by 1977, I was 15. I looked tall enough to get into a lot of R-rated movies on my own, especially if they played at the Carson Twin Cinema. But it wasn't until this 1977 The Farmer re-release that Taxi Driver was finally doing what the producers and the studio were so nervous about, playing on a large number of screens in black neighborhoods in front of black audiences. The year before, in its original release, the film never really made it to the secondary markets, cinemas in the black neighborhoods, discount houses, grindhouses, or drive-ins. So in '77, at the Carson Twin Cinema, alongside The Farmer with an, except for me, all-black audience, that's how I first saw Taxi Driver. What was our response? I dug it. They dug it. And as an audience, we dug it.
Can you dig it?
But it's safe to say it didn't play like the subversion of the vigilante action drama that Schrader intended when he wrote the script. In that theater, with that audience, on a double bill with that other movie, Taxi Driver played like a Death Wish ripoff. Yeah, the lead guy was more fucked up than the guy in Death Wish. But the guy in Death Wish was pretty fucked up. And in both movies, when the lead guy goes up against the bad guys armed to the teeth, you're rooting for him. The first half was way too stretched out for most exploitation audiences. But while it was slow, it wasn't boring. And the reason it never grew dull was due to the random moments of street milieu that Scorsese captured. No film ever made captured the chaos of urban street life in New York in the 70s like Scorsese did in Taxi Driver, and the audience laughed with recognition. The violence, the despair, the grotesquerie, and the absurd comedy had never been depicted with such verve and accuracy in a Hollywood picture before. The movie had a realistic vibe that we plugged into because we recognized its authenticity. The only other time I felt that level of authenticity with the Carson Twin Cinema audience and the picture that was playing on the screen was during the Mack.
Next time you hear grown folks talking, shut the fuck up, yeah?
Before the shoot-'em-up climax, Taxi Driver had a few sections where the audience had a big reaction. Right from the beginning, the audience thought Travis was a fucking nut. They found him ridiculous. And the more the film went on, the more ridiculous he acted, the funnier we found him. But we didn't think Travis was just a nut. We thought Travis Bickle was a goofball. His insipid diary entries drew outright guffaws. When Betsy walks out of the porno movie theater and leaves Travis alone on the sidewalk talking to himself, the audience busted up laughing. What the fuck did you think was gonna happen, you stupid motherfucker? When he tipped over his television set and it practically exploded, what an idiot. When he goes to the record store and buys Betsy the Chris Christopherson album, you gonna buy it for her? She probably already got it. And when Travis stormed into Palatine's campaign headquarters and started acting all crazy, we fell out laughing then too. Especially when he did his little hand-to-hand combat move and made Albert Brooks jump a mile.
All right, leave there.
For the film's first half, to us, the audience in the Carson Twin Cinema, it was a comedy about a stupid idiot who's turning into more and more of a nutter as the story goes on. I doubt during its Grand Palais screening at the Cannes Film Festival, Taxi Driver induced as many laughs as it did that Saturday afternoon. But in a way, the black audience laughing at Travis Bickle's antics in Taxi Driver wasn't that different from that hip Sunset Strip, mostly white audience at the Tiffany, laughing at Peter Boyle's Joe.
42% of all liberals are queer. That's a fact.
Then the moment happened that made the whole theater burst into hysterics. That one guy walking down the street ranting and raving that he's going to kill his woman. We laughed so hard at that guy, we were a little disconnected from the movie for the next 20 minutes. Because we kept cracking each other up about it. That guy was so funny, we had to make ourselves stop laughing. What was it about the I'll kill the bitch guy that cracked our audience up so much? Simple. Everybody in the theater had seen that guy before. I had seen that guy. But the film's biggest laugh was at the Palatine rally. Scorsese shows us Travis is there by cutting to his shoes in the crowd. Then the camera pans up to him, revealing Travis grinning like a maniac, sporting a mohawk. When we saw Travis shaved his head like that, the whole theater burst out laughing. I'm talking hysterically laughing. I'm talking rolling in the aisle laughing. Get a load of this goddamn crazy fool. It was a nice reminder that even though the movie was turning more serious, we were still watching the portrait of an insane idiot. And we laughed through his whole bumbling assassination attempt, especially the overhead shot as Travis runs away from the Secret Service, bumping into bystanders. God only knows how many times I've seen Taxi Driver, and every time Travis's mohawk is revealed, in my head, I hear the Carson Twin Cinema audience's hilarious reaction. In the first half of Taxi Driver, it was just the story of a goofy guy going crazy, depicted against a very authentic street nightlife milieu. When Taxi Driver stopped being a comedy about a goofy guy was when child prostitute Iris Steensma hopped into the back seat of Travis's cab.
Get me out of here, all right?
Travis, who says nothing, watches in his rearview mirror as Sport yanks her out of the cab.
Fucking that bitch, be cool.
And tosses that crumbled up $20 bill onto the front seat.
Yeah, but just forget about this. It's nothing.
That crumpled up $20 bill was such a strong visual image that it sobered up an audience that had grown accustomed to snickering. From that point on, not only did the audience start taking the film seriously, it also started taking Travis seriously, which also coincides with Travis taking his weightlifting and gun handling and preparation for God knows what seriously. That goddamn crumpled up $20 bill. From the moment we saw the effect it had on Travis, and we knew what it represented, the money that keeps the girl on the streets, the cheap payoffs that keep her in her place, the one lone fleeting opportunity that Travis could have saved her, we knew, eventually, he would save her. Then, a movie that defined itself by its random incidents suddenly snapped into focus. Suddenly, all the random incidents didn't seem so random. The filmmakers wanted us to know who this guy was before they sent him off on his moral imperative quest for nobility. Then the movie started playing like a real movie. But frankly, a more real movie than we were used to. Characters weren't the normal movie good guys, bad guys. Travis was a fucking loon. But in this instance, he might be the man for the job. When De Niro has his first scene with Keitel's Sport, it doesn't go quite like we might have thought. For one, as Pauline Kael pointed out, Keitel's pimp is surprisingly personable. When he makes jokes at Travis's expense, we get the jokes, even if Travis doesn't.
I'm here. Well, you don't look hip.
And we laugh. My audience loved Keitel's Sport. And they also loved Stephen Prince's gun salesman.
Magnum. They use that in Africa for killing elephants.
A small thing that makes a big difference is Sport wants Travis to be a satisfied customer.
Go ahead, have yourself a good time. Go ahead.
Sport isn't a monster in a monster movie like the Gargoyles and They Call Her One Eye.
They called her One Eye.
He's a businessman. Even Jodie Foster's Iris isn't the normal exploitation character. For one, she seems much younger during her lunch with Travis than she does in her streetwalker getup. Despite the life she's living, Foster's Iris comes across as naive to the cost. Iris isn't hopeless, there is still something to be saved.
I don't know who's weirder, you or me.
Was it lucky of all the cabs in New York she hopped into Travis's? Travis had been preparing for some apocalyptic showdown, some cataclysmic event, a moment of reckoning, or as Big John Milius would call it, Big Wednesday, a moment where Travis can distinguish himself. And when Iris jumps in his cab, hoping to escape, Travis's preparation finds opportunity. He's haunted by that encounter, but so was the audience. Even more than Travis, we in the audience know that was a fleeting moment. We know that when he eventually approaches her, she'll laugh it off, like she does. She probably won't even remember it. She doesn't.
You don't remember any of that?
She'll insist she's fine and there's nothing to worry about. But that one moment when she jumped into the backseat of his cab, she was clearly and unmistakably asking someone to save her from these people. And then, it was only a matter of time before Travis would take all his guns and save sweet Iris. And that's when Taxi Driver started operating like Death Wish, like Trackdown, which I had already seen, like The Farmer. Paul Schrader is crystal clear that he's subverting the Death Wish movie model. In fact, Schrader would have gone far further than Scorsese ultimately did with Travis's standoff with the pimps. If Schrader had directed the film, he would have surrealistically painted the hallway walls of the fuck hotel with crimson red blood, like in a Kenji Misumi samurai film. Schrader always saw Travis's last stand as a samurai death with honor. That's why he has Travis try to commit suicide, but his gun is empty. That's why he always saw the shootout at the climax as Japanese-style surrealism, the splashing red paint against the walls creating an abstraction of the violence. While Martin understood where Paul was coming from, he didn't comply. When I asked him why not, he humorously snapped back, "Because I'm not Konichikawa, that's why. I could only stage the scene from a world I knew." Yet, Scorsese also told David Thompson, "I was shocked by the way audiences took the violence in Taxi Driver. Previously, I'd been surprised by audience reaction to the Wild Bunch, which I saw in a Warner Brothers screening room with a friend and loved. But a week later, I took some friends to see it in a theater, and it was as if the violence became an extension of the audience and vice versa." Shocked? Really? You were shocked?
Certainly.
So let's get this straight. A Roger Corman alumnus, Martin Boxcar Bertha Scorsese, who came within an inch of directing I Escaped from Devil's Island, directs one of the most kinetically charged violent climaxes in cinema history. And he was shocked that audiences were turned on by it? No, he wasn't. That's just the kind of horseshit that a director would tell a David Thompson, or a Stephen Farber, or a Charles Champlin, or a Rex Reed, or a Rona Barrett, and they'd let them get away with it. But Scorsese being shocked by the audience's reaction to the climax of Taxi Driver is the kind of horseshit that film directors insincerely mumble when they've crafted a tremendously violent and controversial sequence and then find themselves on the hot seat with some interviewer having to answer for it. They never say cinematic violence is fun. They never say, "I just wanted to end the movie with a bang." They never say, "I wanted to shock the audience out of their movie trope-fed complacency." Ken Russell might say that, but very few directors who have ever lived had the balls that Ken Russell had.
I don't have the guts. Come on, asshole. Come over here. Come over here. I'll put this in your ass.
Like Peckinpah before him, Scorsese had to bend over backward to disingenuously describe those magnificent, exhilarating, violent scenes he crafted as horrifying. I've already described how different Taxi Driver was from the other Revengeamatics that screened during that year and the year before that. Its characters, its milieu, its objective, its authorial voice, its literary aspirations. But where Taxi Driver lined up with Coffee, Fighting Mad, Johnny Firecloud, Trackdown, The Human Factor, and the other Revengeamatics that unspooled on the Carson Twin cinema screens, was the way the whole film built to a climactic and orgasmic explosion of violence. A climactic explosion in Scorsese's hands that is as brilliant and kinetic as any shootout sequence ever captured on film. So, exactly what was the shocking part of the audience's reaction to Taxi Driver when Scorsese first saw it during its initial release? Scorsese explained to Thompson,
"Are we rolling now?" "We have been for some time."
We have been rolling for some time.
"I saw Taxi Driver once in a theater on opening night, and everybody was yelling and screaming at the shootout. When I made it, I didn't intend to have the audience react with that feeling. Well, maybe they were yelling and screaming because the audience had been led to both that ending and that violent explosion the entire film. And now, at the film's climax, they reacted like an American movie audience and yelled, screamed, and cheered. And on opening night of Taxi Driver, a big part of that screaming, yelling, yelping, and even laughing had to do with the audience's jumping out of their seats reaction to Scorsese's graphic gore effects in the final shootout. Of course, they're rooting for Travis. He's saving a girl who's been put out on the sidewalks of New York to sell herself to anybody walking by with $25. $25 she's not even allowed to keep. Of course, we're rooting for Travis to win his one-man stand against the sleazy pimps, even if he did start it. If we're not meant to, at least sorta root for Travis's success in his mission, why make Iris a child? If Iris was 19 or 20, nothing in the story would be any different. She could still be lost and brainwashed. She could have still had the same moment of clarity. She could have still hopped into Travis's back seat hoping for rescue. The only thing in the scenario that her not being a child would have changed would be Travis's moral imperative and the audience's perception of that quest. The structure of most Revengeamatics is the audience is driven mad watching the lead character get fucked in the ass for the first half of the film, and then is brought to climax as the lead character wipes out all the offending fuckers in the film's final reels. Now, Scorsese monkeys with this structure during Taxi Driver's first half, but by the film's last 40 minutes, structure-wise, Taxi Driver might as well be Trackdown. Scorsese has jerked us off so hard throughout the film, now that we're heading towards the climax, going where the whole movie has always threatened to go, we can't wait to come. And when Travis blows Murray Mostyn's brains out the back of his head, and they go splat against the wall of Iris's fuck hotel room, we do. Which brings me to my rhetorical question to Maestro Scorsese. When you direct one of the most kinetic and outrageously violent action scenes ever contained in a studio-produced motion picture, violent catharsis surely must have been one of the filmmaker's goals, right? Is Travis Bickle disturbing and troubling? No doubt. Yet, as much of a wacko as the movie presents him, Neither Schrader, nor Scorsese, nor De Niro go all the way in indicting the character, steering him far closer to Charles Bronson's Paul Kersey in Death Wish than Peter Boyle's Joe Curran in Joe, as opposed to the climax of Taxi Driver, where Travis kills the sex traffickers. During the climax of Joe, when Joe blasts hippies at the commune with automatic weapons, it didn't turn audiences on. It wasn't a great action scene. It wasn't intended to be kinetic, and we weren't meant to find it cathartic. Its intention was to be horrifying and ironically tragic. And that's how audiences reacted to it. Also, Joe doesn't engage in any societal compromises or audience pandering. On the contrary, it flew in the face of compromise and pandering. Joe's great screenwriter Norman Wexler could have given Joe some bullshit backstory in an attempt for the audience to get their bearings on this challenging lead character. But Wexler doesn't attempt to try and explain Joe or for Joe to explain himself. Joe is just who he is. Even Paul Schrader, in regard to Travis Bickle, slightly invests in this type of character tomfoolery by suggesting Travis is a Vietnam veteran and that he did a tour of duty during the war. Horseshit. No fucking way was Travis in Vietnam. The extent of Travis's paranoia of black males is only credible if they are an other that he has only had superficial contact with. How do you do a tour of duty in Vietnam and only have superficial contact with black dudes? The answer is, you can't. Okay, say he did serve with black dudes in Vietnam, does that mean he has to like them? No, not necessarily. But it's not convincing he would fear them the way Travis does. In the movie, he fears them as an other. If you serve in war with 6 or 7 black guys, officers and enlisted men, they wouldn't be an other. Unless, possibly, if Travis was an MP. I don't have a problem with Travis's fraudulent claim in the movie. The only proof the movie offers up of Travis's military service, no Vietnam flashbacks, is his account to Joe Spinell and his jacket.
Military record. Honorable discharge, May 1973.
Fine. Travis spends the entire movie demonstrating to the audience that he's an unreliable narrator, completely delusional, and he constantly presents himself to characters in a fraudulent manner, usually to get something he wants at the moment. Scorsese further clarified to Thompson his intentions in regard to the audience when he was making Taxi Driver. The idea was to create a violent catharsis, so they'd find themselves saying, yes, kill, and then afterwards realize, oh my God, no. Okay, that's slightly less horseshit, but if the goal was oh my God, no, then show a movie about a man who spends the entire movie speaking about cleaning up the scum of the city, and demonstrate that it's black males he considers the scum of the city. Then at the climax, he kills a bunch of black males because of their defilement of a young white girl and is turned into a hero by the very same city. That is white society. Now that would have been viewed by audiences as, oh my God, no.